Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Flight of the 50 Fancies, Episode 1. Last week we were talking about ideas, and that's what this podcast is going to be about. What are ideas? What is an idea? What do people... Who has ideas? Webster's Dictionary defines an idea as cognition that occurs as a result of a combination of perceptions that themselves are not related to the cognition. And I mean, it makes perfect sense because that's why they call them ideas. So last week we were talking about ideas, and that's what this podcast, we're gonna get involved in a lot of in a whole bunch of different kind of wild stuff. Got a lot of guests this week. One of them is named Strom Thurmund, and he had a kind of wild story, sort of weird and wild kind of thing that he was talking about. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, so it says here that Strom Thurmund was in a flesh-eating fungus cult that he had to get his fungus some meat every day of the week, and it says here, a flesh-eating cult of cannibalistic fungus uncovers the UFO of a gigantic blood-sucking ghost. And so this is a pretty wild sort of story, Strom. I was wondering if you would kind of describe how did you get involved in this cult? Like, where did you meet up with? Well, that's a good question, Peter. I remember seeing this brochure in this like sci-fi kind of magazine. It wasn't really sci-fi magazine. It was more of a like non-fi, really. Like they had a lot of, like, psychics and cannibals and witches and necromancers, either articles about them or just the whole process, all the different processes. Like there was this like crazy mage who wrote for them all the time, named what the hell is his name? Franz Risp. And I remember he had this column every week it just had all these like super cool recipes for potions. There's they weren't like invisibility they were like potions for stargazing and like potions for snow and stuff. And like I mean, gotta be honest with you, they didn't really make any sense. But he had a column every week in this magazine. Woo! So what was the magazine? What was it called? It was called Dark Art Magazine, and I don't know where it was published or anything. I should have figured this stuff out. It was before the internet, but so I just saw this ad in the magazine about, like, I was a young kid. I was kind of vulnerable to that kind of stuff. It's like, are you feeling lost? Are you feeling lonely? Are you feeling misunderstood? Well, there are people who understand you. And like, by the way, like above this message, there is this like really badly photocopied picture of like a flying saucer. So I like knew that they were my kind of people. And there's a phone number, as I called it. It was this one, these were the old days. It was a 7-digit phone number, and I called them up, and they were telling me all, like, just the cool stuff. They're telling me, like, they worship this fungus, and I was like, kind of into like ecology and like eco-anarchy and like bio-leftism and just a lot of kind of like radical sort of like when we talk about like radical, there's so many jokes about, like, because radical comes from the Latin word radix, and and the radix means root, and like people are interested in like bio kind of stuff. They're always, the roots are important because roots are kind of a botanical sort of thing. And, so there are a lot of jokes passed around left and right. And, I just was so into this, like, fungus worship thing. I didn't realize it was, like, a real thing. I just kind of thought they were, like, I was going to go over to this dude's house, Dave Build's house, in Boston, and, I figured it would just be, like, probably getting baked or whatever. But it wasn't like that at all. He had, like, a church in his house. It was, like, a big church. I mean, it wasn't a big church. It was a big church for a house. It was just like a regular, 2-story kind of suburban Boston brownstone. But he had pews in the living room, and he had an organ, and like the organ, it was like a custom organ that was like not shaped right. There wasn't. I mean, you know how organs are kind of. Most of them are pretty angular, I would say, right? Yeah, sure, yeah, angular. But this one had kind of a lot of, like, lumps and curves, and, like, there are these wood, like, you know how you go into the woods and you see these trees with these, like, hard black lumps? Well, this organ, like, the wooden parts, like, had those lumps on them, and, anyway, and then, it was a fungus. I didn't really realize that at the time, but it was. Like, the organ was made of wood that was infected with a fungus, and it sounded great. I mean, you'd be surprised. It looked crazy as hell, but it sounded really good, and I was bewitched. I mean, probably in more ways than one, I was bewitched, and they were just so nice to me, and there was, like, maybe 15 of them there, and at the time, I was working, like, 3 days a week at the burger flipping place. I don't even want to say its name because, this isn't like, we don't do ads on this program, right? No ads, so good. Yeah, burger flipping, that sucks. And like, yeah, it sucked. And I just, all these people, and they had all, they said, yo, you want to be kept busy, we'll keep you busy. And like, I mean, it wasn't like, at the first it wasn't that crazy. Eventually it got into like, like digging for like spaceships, like all these other, like all these whatever UFO cults, or like, looking up at the sky and stuff. But like these guys, the fungus worshippers, were like into this idea that these aliens, like millions of years ago, like psychic blood-sucking aliens, buried a spaceship under Boston, or under what would become Boston, because they had trapped a gigantic ossuary of an alien. I mean, the aliens had trapped a gigantic god, basically, this gigantic devil-worshipping god, this group, this UFO group that I joined up with, had this like idea about this like extraterrestrial fungus was like beaming Dave Build all this information about this spaceship that was buried under Boston, that had this gigantic devil worshipping god trapped in it, and he wanted to like unleash this spaceship onto Boston. And like, so that was crazy when we were like digging these holes, and like we got arrested once. Then like we couldn't explain why we were digging, because like, what were we gonna say? So that was one time. But at first we didn't have anything that crazy to do. He just kind of like told me to quit my job at the burger flipping place, and we we went on a little tour. Nothing like, not cross country kind of thing, but we went up to like New Haven. That's not really okay. I mean, we went to a few places in like the tri-state area, and got paid to try to get people to hop on board. And I was doing pretty good. I actually got some So we're back. You're still listening to The Flight of the 50 Fancies, and I'm here with my guest, Strom Thurmund, who is just telling us about kind of some ideas. That's what this show's all about. The show's all about ideas, and Strom Thurmund, sounds like you were involved in a group that had plenty of ideas, so yeah, why don't you keep talking about that? Thank you. So, like I was saying, I was just I found this group that was like into this like extra-dimensional fungus. Okay, so I never saw the fungus or anything. It's not like one of those kinds of, like the mystery cult. I was involved in like one of those mystery religions for a while. They have like the different, about the mystery religions? No, please tell us all about them. Well, they were like this, I guess it was in Rome mainly, but, I managed to stumble upon one in my my life, and it was, so they have this lot of, like, little secret things that you can't, like, initiates don't know about, but once you, like, gain in rank, they'll tell you more and more about, like, their doctrine, and, like, the reality, and whatever, and it's usually total scam. Like, you pay, of course, you gotta pay for, like, to increase in rank, and then once you get to, like, the 10th rank or whatever, it's just like, you get so excited, like, hey, what's the big picture here, and they're just like, you're gonna be alright in the end, everything's gonna be great for you, thanks for playing. Anyway, so I was involved in a mystery religion, but this one was cooler because, it wasn't a mystery. This one wasn't a mystery religion. It was a extra-dimensional fungus religion, and we were, digging for this spaceship in Boston, and this is at a time when, like, all the kind of, like, groovy kind of, like, underground in Boston, it was like been like going nuts over these sightings in the Boston woods of these, like, they kept calling them like lamp men, and they were these like really tall, of course they're all tall dudes who, like, and I think there are a lot of different theories about what was going on with those guys. I think my favorite one, it was kind of like the wildest sort of theory, was that these were these like, flesh-eating ghouls that were showing up because of the, radiation that was coming in from Russia. Because because of course Boston is like so far north, and that's where they were all saying it was coming from. Like, it was coming over the Antarctic and like going all over Canada, and like just happening to hit the woods of Boston, and like suddenly these lamp men, these like flesh ghouls, are coming out of the woodwork, just for nothing other than to be seen, just to cause sightings to occur. Like, no one ever got like disappeared from like, like strange lamp men coming through the window of someone's house or whatever. It just, never amounted to anything, but I just thought that was like such a groovy kind of, like, these like flesh-eating ghouls are like coming, like getting like roused by like nuclear, like by Chernobyl. I guess it was about Chernobyl time around then. I can't remember exactly, late 80s, mid to late, when this was all going on. The whole extra-dimensional fungus cult didn't even last until like 1991, I think. I think by then it was like, yeah, right, there's like too many promises, but I spent a good like 5 years with this group, and they're all, they had all these like allies throughout Boston and New York and Philadelphia and Baltimore. We had like a little link of this cabals of necromancers in each city. Like, we made sure we would keep in contact with them and like make sure we, because all we had to do, like, our end of the deal was keep them all apprised of our search for the gigantic alien trapped in the spaceship under Boston. which of course, like, all of these, like, late 80s necromancers were, like, they were, like, very interested in, you know, getting a piece of the action there if we ever managed to dig it up. And, you know, I was never, you know, quite let in on any secrets about why Dave Build wanted their help. Like, what were they doing in exchange? Like, we exchanged our information about our excavations of this, basically what amounted to like an alien tomb, and to these necromancers, and they would tell him some stuff. We got some weird letters when I started living there, like, full time. Dave Build's place, kind of like sleeping on pews every night. You know, in the afternoons, we would get some wild letters in these, like, black envelopes, of course. I don't even think a necromancer knows where to get a white envelope, but these were, like, black, thick, I don't know, they felt like skin or something. I'm sure they were. I'm sure that they weren't made of plant material. But whatever, I wasn't like going crazy about these envelopes then. I was just like, in fact, at the time, I kind of didn't, you know, I didn't want to touch them any more than I had to. And I just kind of, like, you know, whenever I was the one who had to get the mail, you know, because it was a rotation. Basically everything that needed to happen happened on this, like, really complicated fungal rotation. And so I would, every once in a while, every like 9 days or whatever, I would have to get the mail, and it was like all black. Well, no, we got packages and stuff once in a while, but mainly letters from these necromancers, because they're like the only ones who knew about us. We didn't like sign up. We didn't like get subscriptions to things, really. I mean, like, you know, I was reading a lot of these kind of wild magazines, but I was just in like the curio shops, you know, like Wanda's on Fleet Street was this really cool bookstore, and they had these like literary magazines that only ever had like one issue. It was like a constant rotation of like 1 issue long literary magazines, like right in the front of the store, and we like had basically no, I mean, you know, you'd buy one and then you'd be like so into it, and you'd talk to Wanda like in the next week, and you'd be like, hey, so when are you getting another thing of this stuff? And she'd be like, I don't know, you gotta like contact them. And I mean, usually there wouldn't even be like an address or whatever, so that's it. You just get this like crazy magazine once called, I don't know, I can't even remember any of their names, but like Ghoul Feast or something, and like all the stories would be like crazy, and then you'd want Ghoul Feast issue 2 or volume 2, and it just wouldn't show up. And instead you'd have like Church of Wizards next or something. So I was going to these places once in a while, but it was mostly just to, like, I mean, we'd never get subscriptions. I'd just buy whatever we needed there, because like, honestly, we did like need to know about a lot of this stuff. I was talking, you know, like that mage and his like crazy. No, that was Church of Wizards. No, the Church of Wizards was the magazine that I found the Dave Build's Coven in, like, their advertisement, and that's where that had the mages column, and I like to think that mage knew Dave, and like he was sending us letters and stuff, but all I know is like he was like trying to make potions, like snow potions, and like getting really, really into psychic warlocks, but he never, I mean, I don't know how much, it's just wishful thinking that he had anything to do with us, and so I don't know. I mean, it was, I guess, just to get back to the point of this podcast or whatever, it's just like supposed to be, you know, just this big idea that there's a gigantic alien god, a devil-worshipping god in a spaceship under Boston. People can really get together for any reason, and we all got together because of that. And I mean, for a while I was with them for like 5 years and didn't really amount to anything, because like I mean, chances are that's probably. I mean, probably not exactly a spaceship. Chances are it's something a little less climactic than that. But whatever. It's like they always say, it is what it is. Isn't that the truth? That's definitely the truth. So, but let me ask you something, Strom. When you were with them, how did he convince you this all this stuff was happening? Well, he had, what normal way to convince people of I mean, like, okay, so it wasn't like exactly a spaceship. We didn't find anything, but we had clues. We had these necromancers. I mean, they were doing something. Like, I know Dave Build wasn't just like just making stuff up. There were people telling him, but there are these like entire cabals of necromancers in Boston and New York and Philadelphia and Baltimore and probably elsewhere. I think we got some letters from London or some, wherever. Some, it wasn't just like the East Coast or whatever. We had a huge network of necromancers who were interested in mausoleums full of aliens, and that's what we were going for, and that's what we got together about. Like, ideas are powerful. I mean, that's the whole point of your podcast, is the idea. Why did you even want, I guess I just don't understand the question. Well, no, I think you've answered it pretty well, and yeah, so is there anything I missed about that you wanted to mention about your experiences with this group? What were they called, by the way, this group? They were called the Myxomyoides Church. Well, they were called a few things. That was the last thing that they were called. I can't remember what they went through. A few names. They went through like several names, but one of them was Myxomyoides. Wait, and what's Myxomyoides? It's like a family of fungus, I think, or like zoomycetes or something, or mycetes. Just kind of a, that was the kind, the species or the family or the genus or whatever of the fungus that was communicating with Dave and through him with our network of necromancers. And I guess I just sort of can't remember the other ones. Okay, I'd like to thank Strom Thurmund for being on the flight of the 50 Fancies today, and I am very pleased to have him on our radio show. So thanks, and it was illuminating. Glad to be on your show. So for the second... Alright, so I got a letter from someone in India, and he wanted me to read it out loud. This is just some of his own kind of musings. I kind of wish he gave me the whole thing. It sounds like a pretty kind of a long thing called the Compendium on Reality, and he only sent me he says it's Compendium on Reality, texts 3612 to 3619, or 3612 to 3619. So 7 texts. I don't know. Anyway, so there's the text and the commentary. I don't think I'm gonna read the commentary. I'm just gonna read you the text because it's some pretty wild stuff, and I guess I wish I had the context, the previous 3611 texts, so I could kind of wrap my head around it more. But so it sounds like he's saying, being devoid of teachings of mixed character and those of slaughter and such other evil things, how could these teachings be the work of sportive goblins and others? In them there is no teaching of mixed character, nor of slaughter and other evil things, which alone could be the work of sportive goblins and others. All that lies within the purview of those two means or forms of right cognition is in the strict accord with these, and nothing of the slightest thing contrary to them is vouched for by the two means of cognition. Even in regard to absolutely supersensuous things, the said teaching is not annulled by anything past or future. It prompts the manifestations of such qualities as compassion and the like. It is endowed with all forms, expounds right behavior. It is conducive to various forms of welfare here and elsewhere. It teaches the antidote to all kinds of love, hatred, and the rest. It opens the gate to the city of nirvana. If such teaching could be the work of playful persons or demons, then these same may be the enlightened beings, as fulfilling all the conditions of enlightenment. Merely by giving a different name to a thing, its real form does not become altered. In fact, if a man were to call the cultured uncultured, he himself would be subject to the derision of all good people. So I was just thinking that's sort of on the same topic, sort of on the idea that we need a lot of ideas. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just left a little reeling by the compendium on reality from Mr. Ganganatha Jha from Motilal Banarsidass, which apparently is some kind of publisher in India, I guess. So thank you for sending that in. You got a lot of... And by the way, I kind of feel like I'm doing something wrong here after reading that, but I kind of feel... we have a lot of... You can send us your letters and your comments. You can give us a call. You can just get in contact with us. We're all about the exchange of ideas as they relate to fear and panic, as well as love and and compassion, or all that kind of stuff. As far as I know, that's really all I had planned for tonight. So make sure you tune in next week for volume 2 of the Flight of the 50 Fancies. So good night and Godspeed.